I got to do something where as I age, my value actually goes up, not goes down. If you're an entrepreneur, it's your kind of duty to explore the best options for you and your family. I mean, look at the results it's allowed to produce. People are doing business in volumes that seemed, unattainable before because we just didn't have the technology for it. That's really allowed us to grow into what we are, and certainly allowed me to feel absolutely like this was the best decision I've ever made. It's the modern way of doing business. It lets you streamline everything, and the best thing is
eXp is where it's at if you want to be established in the Wolfpack. Yeah. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Wolfpack Chat. I'm your host, Laressa Ngoeun, and on this episode, we have an incredible Wolfpack member here with us today. This is someone I truly respect, admire, and is just so thankful to have in the Wolfpack because he has always been so helpful and so generous with his resources. So thank you. And I consider him to be kind of one of the OGs, original gangsters of the pack, or rather
Appreciate
part
that.
of the, small community of realtors that have seen the Wolfpack from where it was in the beginning, the evolution to where it is now. And prior to my friend here becoming a realtor, he was actually a forestry technician and a sawmill supervisor with a crew of 16 people, and basically operated heavy equipment for most of his working life. Now, fast forward to today, over the last 4 years, he has helped hundreds of clients achieve their real estate goals and dreams. And I'm so thankful to have him here with us today. And he actually is now on pace to becoming a eXp Realty Icon agent, which is amazing because when you become an Icon agent here at eXp Realty, you not only become iconic, legendary, and unstoppable, but as an eXp Realty Icon agent, you have the eligibility to receive your entire $16,000 company cap back for free in free company stock, which is of course life-changing and game-changing in our industry. So here with me today, located in Prince George, British Columbia, representing eXp Canada like myself, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Wolfpack Chat, Marc Posselt.
Well,
Hi,
thank you
Marc.
very much, Alyssa. Hello. How's it going?
Good. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not every day I get invited, again, with like the most nicest invite I've ever gotten. So absolutely happy to be here. And thank you very much for having me on.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. So to begin things off here, let's kind of take it back. So for those who don't know who you are, can you give us the evolution of the Marc we see here today, kind of starting with how you got into the real estate space?
Sure, absolutely. I'll try and be brief. I tend to be long-winded, but I made a couple bullet points. So the overarching long story short is I entered the workforce at age 13. My parents owned a logging camp 2 hours from my hometown. And so during the summers in between high school, my brother and I would go out and operate heavy equipment with the adults. And so we were working 12-hour days at 13 years old. So that's kind of what instilled my work ethic and got me to realize that I enjoy having money and not being in debt. So it was a good way to do that, or to get to that stage. And after that, I pretty much relied on my work experience as a heavy equipment operator for most of my life. It wasn't what I did all the time, but any time that I was in between jobs, or when I moved from BC to Ottawa when was that, 2007? I was there for 8 years. And so in and amongst school, that's pretty much what I did, and never had any problems finding any work. So my core is basically heavy equipment operator. But more recently, as you mentioned, I was supervisor for one of my parents' sawmills. They've got some small specialty mills, and I had a crew of 16. So that taught me a lot about people and managing people, and certainly got me into the kind of step into that role of leadership, where before I was pretty much just an employee my whole life, and kind of, I always had great jobs and always did well, but had an employee mindset, right? I was there to do my work and do it well. And then outside of that, it was my own time. But in working at the sawmill, it was certainly a spot where I had to learn that the work it doesn't have to follow you home, but certainly it does sometimes when you have that many employees, because they all have lives and things happen. Sometimes they get sick, sometimes they need money, whatever it is. So that was invaluable experience in leadership, and it's now helped me transition that into what we do here at eXp.
Amazing. So what kind of made you decide to get your real estate license in the beginning?
I've always really enjoyed the thought of real estate. And I saw my parents, they're Germans. They love to, the more property they own, the better sort of thing. They'll buy it and they won't sell it sort of deal. So I kind of watched them over the years just acquire little pieces of property here and there, or larger ones, and hang on to them and see what they evolved into. And then the odd time they did sell something, it was like, you sold it for what? After you've held it for that long and did nothing with it? So that's what got the gears churning. But it wasn't until I was at my forestry technician job, and I was starting to get over 30. So I was 31, I believe, when I started that, and 33 when I stopped it. And I was just coming home, just beaten and battered. I mean, it was rough. It was hard work. You were carrying
I'm
about
sure,
60 or
yeah.
70 pounds of equipment. And
Yeah.
so every day afterwards was like, okay, I got to do something where as I age, my value actually goes up, not goes down, because that was a very physical job. And there's only a certain time span of that. And real estate made sense. It made sense because of what I saw happening with the house prices. And it made sense just because I knew that, basically I could earn more as I got more experience, and it didn't require my body to have all of its faculties. So say I was in an accident, or something else happened where I couldn't use all of my body. As long as my brain was good, then I could continue to earn. So that was really what got me going. And then at that job for about a year, I just listened to podcasts. In fact, it was a GSD mode podcast with Joshua Smith, as well as some books from Jim Rohn and Grant Cardone and Brian Tracy and those kinds. And pretty much for a year straight, every chance I could, whether it was driving to and from that work, which sometimes was 3 hours of driving, or at the job itself in the wintertime when the bears were sleeping and I wasn't worried about getting mauled.
Yeah.
So it was just hours of that, and it finally got me to realize that, hey, look, everyone starts from somewhere, and most people start from where I started from or less. And then one conversation with a friend of mine who I hadn't spoken to since high school, and he'd just been rookie of the year at Remax. I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it for sure. So that was the final step. It was after that phone conversation, I literally went home, signed up for my course, and the rest is history.
Amazing. So did you start off with an actual physical brick-and-mortar brokerage in BC?
I did, yeah. So it was actually a startup brokerage. The wealthiest person in our city owns a sawmill, and he decided he wanted to branch into real estate because he owns a lot of it. And, he started a brokerage and wanted to franchise it, and he had all the right places and pieces in place. And in fact, our whole strategy was social media. We had a full-time social media person. We had the first 3D tours in the city, and everything was good except the managing broker that he decided to put in place pretty much was not the right one. And after a year, it pretty much fell apart once I left. So that was unfortunate, but it got me to learn to be resourceful and not rely on the brokerage. And that's why the transition to eXp after I was at another one for a year was much easier, just because it was, I'd already learned that the brokerage isn't what makes you the agent you are what makes you the agent you are, and the resources that you can kind of pool and utilize.
For sure. So let's take it back between, so before kind of, the Wolf Pack became what it is today, where Mike Sherrard partnered up with Connor Steinbrück, who are both very big in the YouTube space in regards to real estate. Before they kind of partnered up, they had what was called the Social Strategy Mastermind. So can you talk to us a little bit about what that was and how you discovered that and how you ended up, working with Mike and Connor in this group?
Yeah, actually, it's a funny story. Before Mike was ever at eXp, and before I knew he was as big a deal as he was. The very first time I heard Mike was actually on that GSD Mode podcast.
Yeah.
And that was when he was 4 months into the business. And so I was like, oh, Purple Realtor. Okay, he's in Calgary. Cool. And then fast forward a year later when I'm actually a realtor, and I decided I want to start doing videos because I saw that Mike was doing them. And it just so happens I had a friend who wanted to sell a house in Calgary. So I phoned up Mike and said, hey, I've got a referral for you. And sent that to him. And that kind of started, I figured that would just get me to build a relationship with him. And after that, he started the Social Strategy Mastermind. I joined that because obviously it was in alignment with what I was trying to do. And then I don't know how long it was into that, but I guess a couple of weeks in, I realized, hey, if I want my business to go where I want, like where I think it, or where I'd planned it to go, then I need to align myself with people that are doing that. And no one in our city was doing video at all. In fact, I'm still the only realtor that has a YouTube channel here.
Wow.
And so I joined that. And after, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, after the first little while, realized I wanted to go, but because of the ties I had to my current brokerage at the time, I was best friends with the part owner.
Right.
It took me an extra 5.5 months to come over. Just because of that, I'm a fairly loyal guy and I'm a pretty emotional person. So I felt that, long story short, I delayed because of that friendship. But that whole time I was in the Social Strategy Mastermind and learning a lot from it and getting my YouTube videos up, and they still pay off dividends. They continue to gain my subscribers and they continue to get me clients. So worked out well.
How long was that mastermind going on for? Was it a couple of months? Because I don't really know too much about their timeline of when they started it and then when they kind of ended it and started, really pushed off with the Wolfpack.
I feel like it was almost a full year, but I might be misremembering. It felt like a year anyway, but I think it was definitely over about 8 months because I was in it for a while. Then at some point I realized, hey, eXp probably makes sense, but I wasn't ready to move yet. And then, like I said, it was another 5.5 months before I finally did move. And when I moved, it was still going on. And then at some point they kind of switched it into just the weekly Wolfpack calls because they were basically trying to create content for the Tuesday call as well as the Thursday call. And a lot of it was spillover. So they just merged it into the Tuesday call. So I would say probably 8 months to a year.
That's still quite a significant amount of time. Because I think when I was coming into the Wolfpack, they were kind of just ending that era and then moving full force with the Wolfpack and eXp. So that's really cool. And so, like I said, you're kind of one of the many or the few that have come specifically from the social strategy mastermind into the Wolfpack. Do you remember anybody else from that group that is now in the Wolfpack now?
Yeah, absolutely. Depot, Carlton, Eric Haas, Louis. There's quite a few more that it's been so long I can't remember who was in that and who's just one of the early adopters. But if you look, I guess there's no way to look it up, but certainly there's quite a few. In fact, there's less that aren't here than that are, if that makes sense. So when I was just looking at some of the screenshots, I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that person. And it was like maybe 1 in 20 that isn't actually here right now currently. So I'd say it worked pretty well.
But that was like 2 years ago when they started that, right?
It was a while, yeah. I've been here. My 2-year anniversary will be at the end of September, so in about 2 months.
Nice, nice. So let's talk about that kind of transition. So what about the Wolfpack, even, what about Mike and Connor that made you realize like, okay, I need to make this transition, this move to eXp? What about this group made you say, I have to go, even though I have ties with my broker? Like, because I was like that too. I was emotional. I was like, I want to, but I don't. So maybe you can speak to that.
I think most people are like that. And and even if they're not necessarily like actually like that, if you approach them with it, they like to think they are. So that's kind of the typical response. But actually it was mostly Mike in the beginning because I had that relationship with him prior. And in watching everything he was doing, his branding was on point. His videos were really starting to add value where when I really started to watch, or when he made the shift into basically showing you exactly how to create a Facebook ad, how to create a YouTube ad, how to create all these different things and free on his channel, I started to pay attention because at that time, no one was really doing that at that level. They'd say, hey, you know what, you can do this and that. And if you buy my course, or if you join my thing or whatever it was, then, you'll get to learn how to do these things. And, realtors are suckers. So, there's enough people that do that they can continue to do it. But Mike was giving everything for free. And so I was sitting at my brokerage. In fact, in 2020, when COVID first came, I think I didn't take a weekend off until maybe October. And I was down there with my best friend at the brokerage. And a lot of it was watching Mike's videos and just going right through, following along what he did. And in that process, I realized, A, he knew what he was talking about. B, he would tell us stuff that he had upcoming. So things he was going to create or things he's going to build or where he saw his business going. And they were such big ideas that I almost didn't believe him. Not that I didn't believe him, but I was like, well, how the hell is he going to do that? And especially by himself, and especially in the time frame that he said. And then I just kept seeing he just kept churning out exactly what he said. And it just finally realized, like, this isn't smoke and mirrors. This wasn't, some actor. This wasn't some BS. Like, he's legitimately putting the time in. He's making that stuff. And he was just one of the hardest workers I'd ever seen. And his results and what he produced and shared with us was just so far and beyond anything else that was available at that moment. And that's when I really earned that or gained that trust in him that if he said he was going to do something, pretty much it was a guarantee that it was going to happen. Maybe he didn't know exactly when, but if he says he's going to do it, it's going to happen one way or the other. And that level of trust is something that is hard to come by, especially at a brokerage. And so that really, it was my trust in him. And then obviously, as I got to know Connor through the social strategy mastermind, then the trust in Connor as well. And from those two basically spawned everything that we have here. And it's the strong leadership from both of them and the level of giving and caring that they show for us that's really allowed us to grow into what we are, and certainly allowed me to feel absolutely like this was the best decision I've ever made coming over, even though like literally my entire brokerage was like, you're an idiot. what the hell are you doing? Whatever they want to say. I don't want to badmouth it. I love my old brokerage. Basically, my old brokerage was the Wolfpack, but local. So it was open door. It was
Okay.
awesome. I loved it there. And if eXp hadn't come along or the Wolfpack hadn't come along, I'd still be there. I wouldn't go to a big, because it was a local boutique brokerage. So when I got that experience, but at the Wolfpack and then globally and with, exponentially more people, that was really the reason to move over. And it's gone even bigger and better than I thought. So super happy.
That's the thing about eXp. It's not just a local play. Like it's a global play where we have access to so many people. And I think even for me, the reason why I really joined eXp and the Wolfpack specifically was the fact that I could meet basically the most elite people in this industry playing it at the top of their game, and they're sharing with me their strategies as to how they're doing business, and for free, basically, which is amazing to me. And even now having this conversation with you, like, I wouldn't have a reason to be doing this podcast or talking to you right now if it wasn't for the Wolfpack and, like I said, the amazing people of the Wolfpack, and you are one of them. So thank you again for being here. So kind of going back to, again, the Wolfpack, I want to ask you, how has being partnered with the Wolfpack specifically at eXp Realty impacted your business thus far and even, aspects of your life?
How to make it a concise answer?
I know.
It's to keep it short. It's literally affected everything, and I don't mean that as like, oh, it's this whatever, but it's the people that I've been around and the people that have been introduced to me and the people that have come on the call, and then when I've gone to the events, have brushed shoulders with, has given me such a more well-rounded worldview and really kind of put into perspective where I'm at and where I want to go. And it's also giving me a lot of grace for myself, because in the past I made some decisions that were not maybe the best, and those caused a lot of guilt, maybe, or just feelings of like imposter syndrome or whatever it is. And that held me back a lot. And so now, in experiencing the fact that most of the people, like Mike himself, he came from nothing as well. And so seeing that and seeing where he's went, and Connor, and pretty much most of the top people all have similar stories as mine, with some variations on it. And so in experiencing that, it's really allowed me to expand that view I have for myself, and also just be more at peace with the fact that everything isn't going to go according to plan, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. So that's let me have better balance with my family. It's allowed me to not just slam as much work as I can possibly get through and then be completely dead, and not have any time for them, which is what was happening at my last job. Coming home, I was just laying on the carpet for the whole evening because my body was just so sore. So it's let me find better balance. It's let me become more well-grounded, and also let me just kind of evolve myself, in the sense that, like, for the reasons I mentioned, right? So I feel like I'm able to give more of myself to my clients because I'm not so worried about, if I'm doing the right things, or if I'm on the right track, or how I can provide for my family. And that was also the beginning, the first 2 years after that first year at the first brokerage. It was not a good year. It was like, there's no guidance. I was pretty much there by myself because the other 3 realtors that were supposed to have gotten licensed at the same time I didn't pass their exams or didn't write them at all. So it went kind of from like a really low supportive environment to the brokerage I was at, decent supportive, and then to the eXp, where it's just completely made everything exponential from there. And my business is a result of, my business is a reflection of that. And you can see in every year, I've more than doubled my income. This year, I won't quite double it, but still every year has grown, and beyond what I expected to at this point. So I'm just absolutely grateful that in 2 years, it's done that already. And I mean, we're just getting going. That first year was like, we're just trying to figure out, the Wolfpack was kind of all over the place. Yeah, pretty much. Like you said, it was like the OGs was like, hey, we have this cool thing, but like no one knows how to find it. And so now in year 2, we've got everything collected and everything's more streamlined. And not to mention, we just have so much more of everything that, I think the next couple of years are going to be absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, I think so too. And considering the fact that you kind of started off with the physical brick and mortar office, and because eXp we're cloud-based, and the Wolfpack, like, we're on Zoom calls almost every single day. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk to the idea of, the differences between being in a physical office versus being in this cloud-based brokerage. Because I talk to a lot of agents who, want to partner with us here at eXp and the Wolfpack, but they're kind of hesitant because we don't have a physical office, and they want that, in-person camaraderie with these people. But I'm finding that because of the cadence of our calls on Zoom, that I feel like I already know you guys, and I haven't even met you yet in person, but soon.
Yeah. Yeah, but soon, that's right. It is actually really like that. Yes, there is something to be said for actually being in a physical space with someone because there's that extra level of communication that is sometimes a little bit missing on Zoom. However, if you look at the way you weigh the pros and the cons, like anything in life, nothing is perfect. So, Zoom is not like, oh, this is 100% better than whatever. I think it's certainly the better option, and I certainly have gotten a lot out of it. But nothing's perfect, right? So, some people do find that they need that in person, but I think it's not so much that they actually need that. I think it's more in their head. They think because this is traditionally how the way it's been done. Every other job they've ever had, they've kind of went through the process of being the newbie and getting, whatever, and then eventually becoming part of the team. Here, I feel like there's less of that initial, it's not hazing. I'm trying to find the word for it, but that initial kind of familiarity, I guess, with it. And I find that on Zoom, if you're brand new and you're nervous about joining, a big group of people, you can come and just kind of participate and learn without necessarily getting that kind of fear response that I know is a bit nerve-wracking for people in physical space. But the biggest thing for me is just it saved so many hours and so much friggin' driving and so much time. And the fact that, when COVID hit, all of these brokerages couldn't do what they wanted to do. I was saying I was at our physical brokerage for those until October every weekend, but no one else was there. Half the brokerage wasn't even showing up, and then there was the whole mask and all that BS. But I could have done that right here from my office as well and saved the time to drive. So Zoom is definitely, or this form of communication is certainly the future, and I think that there's improvements that can be made, and I'm sure that there will be made, but for right now, this is the best thing that we have. And I mean, look at the results. It's allowed to produce, or it's allowed people to produce that they never really could have before. I mean, people are doing business in volumes that seemed, unattainable before because we just didn't have the technology for it. So I think that's really what the biggest benefit is that it's the modern way of doing business. It lets you streamline everything. And the best thing is it also gives you that familiarity with talking into a camera. Because if you saw me, in the beginning of this journey on the Social Strategy Mastermind, it was a whole different thing. So certainly that's helped. And if you want to be a modern agent and start doing either Reels or TikTok or YouTube or whatever it is that strikes your fancy, you're going to need to learn the skill. And what better way to do it than 4 calls every single week, whether you're participating or not, you're on the call, you have a chance to talk, and you have a chance to get familiar with it. And that segues nicely into any sort of media you want to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, video is very much the future. It's the way of the now. And, I'm not sure who said this. I think it was either in the Thrive Challenge, one of the speakers said this, or maybe it was Mike who said this on our Wolfpack call this week. It's a matter now of not of how many people that you know, but it's rather how many people know you. And being on video, it's not just 1-to-1. It can be 1 to 1,000, 1 to hundreds of millions of people. And that's true leverage in a sense where it's like, as realtors and as agents, we create our own personal brand, and then that's how we kind of, build the authority within the digital space and building up that authority in the algorithm, which is really important now if you want to be ranking, for a certain, because for yourself, you said you're the only realtor who is on YouTube in your area, which is huge, and your videos are still showing up to this day and still gathering you views and getting you leads and getting you that, that acknowledgement that you are that person for that market, which is a huge thing, right?
And it's so bizarre too when a client reaches out to you and you can tell that they're not sheepish, but they're kind of like, hey, don't want to bother you, but I saw your videos and we're moving here and it would be so great if, could we possibly meet at some time? Like, no pressure. And you're like, holy crap, why they treating me that way? And then you meet them and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe we're meeting the guy from YouTube. And like, I'm thinking like, this is bizarre. Like I'm just me. Like I definitely am not, anything special, but it's just that interesting factor of if you're on the other side of the screen and they're watching you through there, somehow it gives you some authority. And so that's really the power of where things are headed and why I think, our brokerage and certainly the Wolfpack and the people that are doing video are having the success they're having because, as you said, it's all within your control. So you don't have to rely on your brokerage to give you the okay. You don't have to do anything a specific way. You can literally do it any way you want. And you'll find your people, hearing stories about like Alex Hermosi yesterday on that Time to Thrive challenge. And he was saying he was so niche down that it was like such a specific thing. And he still had this incredible successful business that you'd think like, well, where the hell are you going to find enough people that want that one specific thing? And it's like, it's out there. Like people need anything you can think of. There's a market for. You just have to get yourself and your product or service or whatever out. And the best way to do that is through social media right now. And it's not free because, you need a few equipment and whatever else, but essentially the barrier to entry is so minuscule compared to what it used to be that it's laughable. It's basically no brainer.
And, with social media and, video content, that's where the Wolfpack, that's where we thrive. And that's where it's uncomfortable. Definitely in the beginning, like it was so hard at the beginning to get on a video. You're like, I do not want to watch myself, especially if you're like editing your video. It's just, but I mean, you get used to it and it's an evolution. It's a journey and you do get better, but it's a matter of putting in the reps and building up that muscle. So it takes time. This is not just, a one-time thing. Like it's a journey to do it. But, kind of going back to the Wolfpack and, us being in this cloud-based brokerage. But I think because we are part of this cloud-based brokerage that we are, on Zoom calls and working in the cloud together. But I think it's because of this reason, this makes our eXp events so huge and ginormous. And you've been to these events. So you went to Build last year, right? Did you go to eXpCon too?
I did, yeah.
So you went to both?
Both, yeah.
Lucky you. And you're going to both this year again?
Definitely Build and going to try to get to eXpCon as well. I got to make that decision. Do I see a band that might not tour for much longer because they're like 75 years old, or go to eXpCon, which does happen every year, but is very important for my business. I'm going to try and make both work, but definitely going to Build. I'll be driving over to Calgary a couple days ahead of time and just hanging out at Mike's place, but we'll just be working and kind of get prepared to fly out and then fly out together. So it'll be good.
Awesome. So talk to me about what it's like meeting up with the Wolfpack at these events, because I mean, I live vicariously through all of your Instagram stories and the FOMO is real. But talk to me about like, what is it actually like being there? Specifically, the Build event last year, because that was insane. Like seeing your stories. So please talk to me about that. Like, what was that experience like?
It was everything I expected, but way more. And the intentional idea of driving all the way to Calgary, because that's an 8.5 hour drive and there's gas and stuff involved. Doing that because it gave me an opportunity to meet up with Mike and to fly out with him, which again give us opportunity to talk more than you would just in this way. I really wanted to build that in-person relationship with him after having met him or been in contact with him for the last year or whatever. So going over there, the very first moment we saw each other, big friggin' bear hug, like absolutely zero awkwardness or weirdness. Because like I say, we see each other every week. I see him more than I'd see my in-person friends, so that familiarity really grew. And from there, when I met Mike, I was like, okay, the rest of this trip is going to go awesome. And it did. Every person you met from the Wolfpack was just like, oh, most people are like, hey, you're bigger or smaller, or, whatever than you look on camera. But other than that, it was like you've known each other forever, and you just it was a very comfortable feeling. And that was the Build event. That one was pretty small. There was, I think, about 12 or 15 of us. And it was incredible because that small form factor of just those few people really let you talk or let you have deeper conversations with pretty much everyone there. So that first kind of group of people that went, that kind of cemented those relationships. And then at eXpCon, when there's about 3 times as many people, you got to see some more people that you hadn't seen, and it just kind of starts growing from there. So in my head, it was an absolute must to go to these 2 events. And truth be told, back then I couldn't afford it last year either. I made a lot of money, but I had a huge tax bill that I'd never had before because I'd never made that much money before. And then I also had large expenses just trying to grow my business, as fast as I can, sort of thing. So at the time, I couldn't really afford to go, but I knew that it was invaluable to go, and that was the kind of long-term play into the future. And now I'm so glad I did, because those 2 events and the relationships that it kind of helped deepen are definitely going to pay off dividends, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. So there's that as well.
So jealous, but I'm gonna be there.
There you go. You're gonna experience it.
I'm gonna be there. It's like I have to be there this year. Like I have to. So
you have to come to events, even if you come to one a year. Like it's I don't know. And if you can go, definitely go. So it's good that you're making plans.
Well, I feel like it's going to be like, I don't know, 5 times bigger, 10 times bigger. Because like there's the Wolfpack in that year from like last year to now, like we've grown so much. But at the same time, I love it because I know so many cool people because of the Wolfpack, and they're from all over. Like I said, if I didn't, partner with this brokerage, like I wouldn't have a reason to know anybody like in Texas, like Connor Steinbrook. Like I wouldn't have a reason to have him on this podcast or to have his actual phone number and text him for something that I need. Like to me, that's insane. That's crazy. But
well, not only is that part of it crazy, but just if you think about, like I said earlier, the kind of the worldview it gives you and the grounding it gives you in the sense of sometimes we get so wrapped up with like our market here is a bit isolated because we're the biggest city in the north of Canada, or we're in the central, what they call us the north, because everything, basically Vancouver is the only thing most people in BC think exists in BC. But anyway, I forget where I was going with this. Oh yeah, so sometimes we get so wrapped up in our little area that we kind of lose track of what's happening in the greater picture of things. So I'll hear conversations happening either with clients or other realtors. And 2 years ago, I would have not only agreed with them, but I would have not known any different. And then now the difference is I get this worldview. I go down to the States. I go, to these events. We have the speakers that we have on from all reaches of the world and all these different experiences they have. And it gives you this picture of what's actually kind of happening in the world. And so when I have these conversations with clients now, I can come at it with a much more grounded view and just tell them, hey, look, yes, this is happening here in our market. Here's why, here's what it means, or here's, what the bigger picture looks like. And they're just kind of like, whoa, what the hell? Like, how do you, how do you know that and stuff?
Yeah.
It's not anything special that I know. It's just simply a collection of all of the things you hear by being in these conversations and being on these calls and hearing from these different people that, like you said, you'd never have an opportunity. I mean, in my last brokerage, they were great about training, better than, obviously the first one isn't really a good litmus test, but better than most. And even there, it was usually someone local or some maybe one of the top producers from the brokerage or whatever. And the odd time it was like someone that was happened to be coming into town, which was great. But I mean, we get that like 2 or 3 times a week. And, and that's just with like our actual call. If you want more of that, just log into the cloud, go take the icon training. I mean, that's current top producers that just had an icon year and they're teaching you how they had an icon year, or at least one element of it. And so it's relevant information, it's current information, and it's just access, or there's access to that information we never would have had anywhere else. So it's, I mean, there's more than you can consume, and now you just kind of have to, pick what is actually going to help you and go from there. So
yeah, it's crazy because now it's like before you didn't really have much of an option, but now there's so much.
Too much.
You have to choose, right? But that's going to be, you're going to meet Icon. You're going to be teaching everybody how you did it. So
there you go.
So before we kind of round off this episode with the, our rapid fire question, do you want to plug where people can find you online, like your socials?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're all pretty simple to find. It's usually just my name. So Instagram is just marc.posselt, and Facebook, same thing, Marc Posselt, or Marc Posselt Real Estate for my business page. YouTube is Living in Prince George. I think if you search by Marc Posselt, it should pop up as well, but the actual channel name is Living in Prince George. And what's I have? LinkedIn, Marc Posselt. Pretty much you just look me up. There's not too many of us in the world. So,
and I will leave his link down below, so be sure to check it out. So, Marc, are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. Pancakes or waffles?
Depends on the day, but I generally go with waffles. However, pancakes are easier to put stuff on. So if I'm in a hurry, it's pancakes.
Nice. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Don't be so hard on yourself, and don't feel like you have to be friggin' perfect. I don't know if it was having a German father that basically was very strict and tried to get you to do everything correctly. But it certainly wasn't the best mindset. Like it helped at the time, but what I would tell my younger self is probably that is the biggest thing, is just don't be so hard on yourself and don't try and be perfect, because just getting going, you're going to figure it out, as you go. So that's the biggest thing. But trying to be perfect, you're not going to do it at all, I guess, is the message there. So just get started and adjust along the way. There was an analogy yesterday on that call too, is don't be an airplane that takes a long time to take off. Be a helicopter that goes up abruptly and it's shaking, it's all crazy, but eventually it corrects its course, and then it always lands where it wants to land. So be a helicopter, don't be an airplane.
Yes, I love that analogy as well.
Me too.
Okay, next question. Cat or dogs?
Cats for sure. Although we're going to get a dog soon, but
okay.
We're just waiting for the kids to be a bit older, but I've always liked cats.
Nice. Hot coffee or iced coffee?
Hot coffee with hazelnut creamer.
Nice. What's your favorite dessert?
Churros, 100%.
Ooh, I like churros.
I love churros.
If you could be an animal, what would it be?
Man, that's a good question. Something that can fly, I think. Probably like a bald eagle or a falcon or something. That sounds dope.
Oh, nice. I didn't even think about an animal that could fly. I thought like something aggressive so you don't like get eaten. But okay, I like that. If you could learn
Hard
any
to get
language,
eaten in the sky.
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
by the birds, but most
I
things
guess
can eat
so.
you up there.
Yes. If you could learn any language in a week, what would it be? Just one. One language.
Probably Spanish. I know German, and obviously I'm pretty good at English. And I know a little bit of French, but I think Spanish would probably be a language I've always wanted to learn.
Nice. Would you rather spend money on a dream home or travel the world for free?
Travel, 100%. I mean, that's not even a real question, is it?
Yeah.
At least not for me. Yeah, that's an easy one. Definitely travel.
Nice. Okay, last question. What do you love most about being part of the Wolfpack family?
People like yourself, and just the fact that we're having this conversation. It's like we've already kind of touched on it's the people first and foremost. The knowledge, the resources, all that other stuff is all not irrelevant, but the effectiveness of all of that, I feel, would be much less if the people here weren't so supportive, weren't so uplifting and encouraging, and also weren't such freaking ballers. I mean, Jesus, we've got some people in our organization that are mind-blowingly successful, and they're regular people. And when you meet them at Build Conference, you'd never know. The coolest, nicest, humblest people. They're there to help you. They're there to give you advice. And yet they're just absolute savages. So the fact that everyone, or that no one comes in with an ego, or if they have a bit of an, like, I can't even think of actually really anyone that's come in with an ego. I was going to say if they have an ego, it gets checked. But as I was saying that, I couldn't even come up with, an example in my head. So I think everyone recognizes what the Wolfpack offers, and it starts from the top down. When you look at Mike and Connor, and it's hard pressed to find more hardworking or selfless people than those two. And it starts from there, and it kind of trickles down to the rest of us. So I would say certainly the people that, or the group that we've collected here as a collective or as a whole.
Beautifully said. All right, friends, there you have it. That was Marc Posselt and Laressa coming at you from the Wolfpack Chat. Thank you so much, Marc, for being here. Any last final words to say to our audience?
I don't know, not really. Just I hope that you got some value out of this, and I hope that it kind of opens your eyes as to the fact that we're not just another brokerage or another group. Obviously, I have a biased opinion, but I think that the facts and the stats and the data speak for themselves, and they show that not only do we walk the walk, but we talk the talk, but we also walk the walk. And so, if you are interested in doing anything in a modern way, or if you just want to improve what you're already doing, I'm not saying you need to come over here. I'm just saying what's worked for me. Coming here is the best decision I've ever made. So, if you want to emulate anything that myself or any of the others that the Wolfpack have done, then you should at least explore it. If you're an entrepreneur, it's your kind of duty to explore the best options for you and your family. And again, I'm not saying this is the best option for you, because everyone's situation is different, but it's been the best option for, going on over 2,000 people. So something somewhere is being done right. And if it's works for you, then, it works. It's worked for us.
Yes. Well said. I agree. Well, thank you so much, Marc, and thank you for everyone who has been watching up to this point. If you're still here, comment #AgentWolfpack down below so we know that you guys are the real ones, right? And if you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the fun. And we will see you all next time. Bye, friends.
Bye, friends.
Wolfpack. Where you at? Come through. eXp is where it's at. If you wanna be a savage, join the Wolfpack. eXp is where it's at. If you wanna be a savage, join the Wolfpack. But eXp is where it's at.